Last night, I was supposed to die. That's what I keep telling myself as I sit here in this cramped hospital room. The fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry hornets. The nurses think I'm in shock. The police think I'm unstable. But I know what I saw up there in that tower. I know what hunts in those woods when the sun goes down. Let me back up. My name is Marcus Webb, and 3 weeks ago, I took what I thought would be the easiest job of my life. A night shift fire watcher at Thornwood National Forest in Northern California. The pay was decent. The solitude sounded perfect for someone trying to escape a messy divorce. And how hard could it be? Sit in a tower, watch for smoke, report any fires. Simple. The ranger station manager, a grizzled man named Dale with a scar running down his left cheek, handed me the keys on my first day. His hands shook slightly as he passed them over. "You ever worked nights before?" he asked, his voice rough as gravel. "Sure," I lied. "Plenty of times." He studied me for a long moment, those gray eyes seeming to look right through me. "Tower 7. That's your post. Radio check every 2 hours with the main station. Don't miss a check-in." "Got it. And Marcus?" He grabbed my wrist as I turned to leave. "Stay in the tower after dark. No matter what you hear, no matter what you see, you stay in that tower." I laughed nervously. What am I going to see? Bears. He didn't smile. "Just stay in the tower." The drive up to Tower 7 took 40 minutes on increasingly rough roads. The tower itself stood about 80 feet tall, a metal skeleton wrapped around a small cabin at the top. Wooden stairs spiraled around the exterior, creaking ominously as I climbed. The cabin was maybe 12 by 12 feet, a desk, a cot, a small kitchenette, windows on all sides, and the most important piece of equipment, the Osborne Firefinder, a circular map with crosshairs for pinpointing fire locations. That first week was peaceful, almost boring. I'd arrive at sunset, watch the forest canopy turn from gold to shadow, and spend my nights reading, listening to podcasts, occasionally scanning the horizon. Every 2 hours, I'd radio in Tower 7, all clear. The dispatcher, a woman named Rita, would confirm, and that was it. But on the 8th night, things changed. I was doing my 2 a.m. scan when I noticed something odd. About 3 miles northeast, there was movement. Not the random swaying of wind-blown trees. This was deliberate, a line of movement cutting through the forest in perfect synchronization. I grabbed my binoculars, but it was too dark to make out details. Just shapes, maybe 20 or 30 of them, moving in single file through the trees. "Tower 7 a base," I radioed. "You got any hikers registered in the northeast sector?" Static crackled for a moment. "Negative, Tower 7. No one should be out there." "What are you seeing?" "Movement. Lots of it. Could be deer, I guess." "Could be." Rita's voice sounded strained. "Keep an eye on it and report any changes." The line of shapes moved for another 10 minutes, then vanished into a ravine. I marked the location on my map and tried to shake off the unease settling into my bones. Deer. Had to be deer. At 4 a.m., I heard the first knock. 3 sharp raps on the wall directly behind my head. I spun around, but there was nothing there, just the window showing the dark forest canopy below. The tower was 80 feet up. Nothing could reach up here except birds, and birds don't knock. I convinced myself it was the tower settling, metal contracting in the cold night air. Then I heard it again. 3 knocks. Same spot. Same rhythm. My mouth went dry. Hello. Nothing. Just the whisper of wind through pine needles and the distant hoot of an owl. At 6 a.m., as dawn began to paint the eastern sky, I radioed Rita about the knocking. Her response was immediate and sharp. "Did you open the door?" "What?" "No, of course not." "Did you look out?" "I looked out the window, yeah." "Nothing there." A long pause. "Good. Don't go outside until full daylight." "And Marcus?" "From now on, when you hear knocking, don't respond. Don't acknowledge it at all." "Rita, what the hell is going on?" "Just follow the rules, Marcus. Dale gave you the rules, didn't he?" "He had. Stay in the tower after dark." I thought he was being melodramatic. The next few nights were quiet, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Sometimes I'd catch movement in my peripheral vision, a shadow that shouldn't be there, a shape that didn't quite match the trees. But whenever I looked directly, there was nothing. On night 12, I saw the lights. It was 1 a.m., and I was filling out my log when the forest below suddenly erupted in soft blue luminescence. Hundreds of lights, maybe thousands, flickering between the trees like bioluminescent plankton in a dark ocean. They pulsed in unison, slowly at first, then faster, creating a hypnotic rhythm. I grabbed my radio. Tower 7 to base. Are you seeing this? Seeing what, Tower 7? The lights. The entire forest is lighting up with. I stopped. The lights were gone. Complete darkness again. Never mind. They're gone now. Marcus, are you feeling all right? Do you need someone to come up there? No, I'm fine. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. My hands were shaking. Those lights had been real. I'd seen them as clearly as I could see my own reflection in the dark window. At 3 a.m., the knocking returned. But this time it wasn't on the walls. It was on the door. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. I stared at the door, my heart hammering. Who's there? The knocking stopped. Then, after a moment of silence, a voice. My voice. Let me in, Marcus. It's cold out here. Every hair on my body stood up. That was my voice, exactly my inflection, my tone. But I was in here. I hadn't spoken those words. Marcus, please. I'm scared. Let me in. I backed away from the door until I hit the opposite wall. You're not me, I whispered. Of course I'm you. Who else would I be? I just want to come inside where it's warm, where it's safe. The door handle began to turn slowly, testing the lock. Thank God I'd remembered to bolt it. Marcus, why won't you let me in? The voice was still mine, but there was something wrong with it now, something hollow. Don't you want to see yourself? I grabbed the radio with shaking hands. Tower 7 to base, emergency. Something is trying to get into the tower. Rita's voice came back immediately, urgent. Do not open that door, Marcus. Do you understand? No matter what it says, no matter what it sounds like, do not open the door. What is it? I was crying now. I'm not ashamed to admit it. We call them the echoes. They've been in these woods longer than the trees. Just wait for dawn. They can't stand the light. The thing wearing my voice stayed at the door for 2 more hours. Sometimes it would plead. Sometimes it would scream. Sometimes it would whisper things only I should know. Memories from my childhood, the name of my first dog, the last words my mother said before she died. At 5:47 a.m., as the first rays of sun touched the top of the tower, it finally left. But before it did, it said one last thing in a voice that was no longer mine, a voice like wind through dead leaves. We'll be back for you, Marcus. We always come back. I should have quit. I should have climbed down that tower at dawn and never looked back. But I didn't. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was stubbornness. Or maybe some part of me was already changing, already being drawn into whatever dark gravity existed in those woods. Night 15. That's when I saw them clearly. I was doing a routine scan at midnight when I spotted figures standing at the tree line directly below the tower. 7 of them, perfectly still, faces turned up toward me. Even from 80 feet up, I could see they were wrong. They stood too straight, limbs at odd angles, heads tilted at degrees that should have broken their necks. One of them raised an arm and pointed directly at me. Then they all began to point, 7 arms extended in perfect unison. I stumbled backward from the window, and when I looked again, they were climbing, not the stairs. They were climbing the tower's metal support beams, scuttling up the framework like spiders, their joints bending in ways human joints shouldn't bend. I could hear the scrape of their fingers on metal, a sound like knives on stone. Rita! I screamed into the radio. They're climbing. They're coming up. The salt line, she shouted back. Check the salt line around the door. I looked down. There was indeed a line of salt across the threshold, but there was a gap, maybe 2 inches wide, where I'd carelessly stepped through earlier. It's broken. Fix it. Now. I dumped salt from the container in the kitchenette. My hands shaking so badly, I spilled more on the floor than in the gap. Outside, I could hear them reaching the platform, their footsteps creaking on the wooden boards that ringed the cabin. I sealed the gap just as the door handle began to rattle violently. All 7 of them were out there now. I could hear them moving, circling the cabin. One of them pressed its face against the window, and I saw it clearly for the first time. It looked almost human. Almost. The features were right. Eyes, nose, mouth, but they were arranged wrong somehow, like a photograph slightly out of focus. Its skin was the color of old parchment, and its eyes were completely black, reflecting the cabin light like oil. "Marcus," it said in my ex-wife's voice. "Marcus, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please let me in so we can talk." Another one spoke in my father's voice, dead 15 years. "Son, I'm disappointed in you. Open this door right now." A third used my daughter's voice, and that nearly broke me. "Daddy? Daddy, I'm scared. Please let me in." I covered my ears and screamed until dawn. They came every night after that. Sometimes they climbed. Sometimes they whispered. Sometimes they just stood at the tree line and watched with those terrible black eyes. Rita explained what she could. The echoes were some kind of entities that existed in the deep wilderness, creatures that mimicked and copied, that fed on fear and confusion. The towers were protected by salt, iron, and other wards, but the protection wasn't perfect. Why not just shut down the towers? I asked. Or staff them during the day only? Because someone needs to watch them at night, Rita said quietly. Someone needs to mark where they gather, track their movements. If we don't watch, they spread. Last time a tower went unmanned for a month, 3 hikers disappeared. We found their bodies eventually, or what the echoes left of them. Why didn't Dale tell me this? Would you have taken the job if he had? She had a point. Night 21. Last night. The night everything went to hell. I was prepared for the knocking, the climbing, the voices. What I wasn't prepared for was the fire. At 11 p.m., I spotted smoke rising from the northeast sector, the same area where I'd seen the strange procession on night 8. I radioed it in, gave the coordinates, and watched as the smoke column grew thicker. Within an hour, I could see flames. Tower 7, we're dispatching units, Rita confirmed. Keep tracking the spread. But as I watched, I realized something was wrong. The fire was spreading in a pattern, a deliberate circle, moving with impossible speed and precision. And in the center of that circle, lit by the dancing flames, I could see them. Hundreds of echoes, maybe thousands standing in concentric rings, their arms raised to the sky. They were conducting the fire like a symphony. Rita, this isn't a natural fire. They're controlling it somehow. That's impossible, Marcus. I'm watching them do it. As I spoke, the circle of fire began to tighten, moving inward toward the gathered echoes. They stood there, welcoming it, and as the flames reached them, they began to change. Their false human shapes melted away, revealing something underneath, something that hurt to look at directly, forms that seemed to exist in more dimensions than my eyes could process. And then they looked at me, all of them, at once, their attention slamming into me like a physical force. The tower lights went out. The radio died. I was alone in the dark with nothing but the glow of the distant fire and the certain knowledge that they were coming. I heard them hit the tower with the force of a hurricane. The entire structure shook, metal screaming as it bent. They weren't climbing this time. They were tearing the tower apart. I grabbed my emergency pack, the one Dale had insisted I keep by the door, and finally understood why it was there. Inside was a flare gun, a flashlight, and a note in Dale's handwriting. If they breach the salt line, run for the river. Don't stop. Don't look back. The windows shattered inward, and I saw arms reaching through, too many arms, bending and twisting like tentacles. I fired the flare gun through the door as I opened it, the bright red light sending the nearest echoes reeling backward, their forms twisting away from the magnesium fire. Then I ran. I took the stairs 3 at a time, the tower swaying sickeningly beneath me. Above, I could hear them pouring into the cabin, their sounds no longer mimicking anything human, just a rising chorus of shrieks and clicks and whispers and languages that predated words. I hit the ground running and didn't stop. Behind me, the tower collapsed with a sound like the world ending. I ran through the dark forest, branches tearing at my face, roots trying to trip me. I could hear them following, a rushing wave of movement through the trees. The river. Dale had said run for the river. Running water. Old things couldn't cross running water. I saw the gleam of moonlight on water ahead and pushed myself harder than I'd ever run. The sound behind me grew louder, closer. Something grabbed my jacket and I tore free, losing my balance, and tumbling down the riverbank into the icy water. The current was stronger than I expected. It pulled me under, and I fought my way back to the surface, gasping. When I looked back at the shore, they were there. Dozens of them, standing at the water's edge, watching me being swept away downstream. One of them, the first one I'd seen with my voice, raised a hand in what might have been a wave. Or a promise. I don't remember much after that. A ranger found me 6 miles downstream at dawn, hypothermic and delirious. They found the remains of Tower 7. The official report called it a structural failure, possibly caused by the fire creating unstable conditions. They offered me counseling, offered to help me process the trauma. But I know what happened. I know what's out there in those woods, wearing the shapes of things they've consumed, practicing being human. And I know they're not done with me. Last night, I was supposed to die in that tower, but I didn't. And now, sitting in this hospital room, I can hear them outside. 3 knocks on the window. My own voice. Marcus, let me in. I'm so cold out here. But I'm on the 4th floor. There is no ledge.